good afternoon to all of you. I'm just delighted to be here as part of the release of this survey, and I have been asked to focus specifically on the findings regarding weight, stress, and health behaviors in children and families, and to put them in the context of the broader research that we have out there. To set the stage, I will very briefly review some statistics with which you are all probably familiar at this point. Approximately 2/3 of U.S. adults and 1/3 of children are overweight. The increase over the last few decades has been striking and particularly sharp for children. The potential physical and psychosocial consequences are serious, ranging from physical outcomes such as type 2 diabetes in children and adults, cardiovascular disease, increase in likelihood of some cancers, to psychosocial outcomes such as depression, low self-esteem, anxiety, social neglect, or isolation. The Stress in America survey, as Dr. Nordal commented, found rates of overweight in both youth and adults that is on par with these national data. But before I move on, I do want to point to data on prevalence in children that breaks these figures out by race and ethnicity. If you have a look at this graph here, you see on the very left prevalence rates for boys in blue and girls in that greenish color, starting with non-Hispanic white children, non-Hispanic black, then Hispanic and Mexican American children. And most striking here are the rates of overweight for black girls and Mexican American boys at 43 and 45% respectively. That's moving up on 1 in every 2 children. And it is critical when we're speaking about children and families at risk for stress and poor health to recognize that particular populations are at greater risk and warrant greater attention. Not only are these groups disproportionately burdened by overweight, but also by a whole host of stressors accompanying poverty and other difficult life circumstances. So when we are thinking about all the connections in today's survey among weight, stress, and other variables, it's worth thinking about how they are impacted and magnified by health disparities. This next diagram here illustrates the relationship between stress and overweight and points out that it's a bidirectional one. Weight gain can be both a cause and a consequence of stress. Further, stress can have a direct physical effect on the body, leading to weight gain, or it can operate through health behaviors. So either stress to weight gain, stress to health behaviors, then to weight gain. For example, eating too much or sleeping when under stress, as overweight youth in our survey reported, or favoring sedentary coping behaviors as youth reported as well. Screen time, by the way, is strongly associated in all of the literature with weight gain in children, so it's very concerning to see this in the survey as a go-to coping strategy for our youth. What we sometimes forget, however, is that overweight itself is a stressful condition. Excess weight is a physical stressor to the body. Overweight can cause a number of negative psychological outcomes like depression, anxiety, social neglect, and in addition, overweight can stress the body through poor health behaviors. For example, while we've already noted that stress can cause people to eat too much, which then makes them overweight, the negative impact of being overweight can cause a person to eat too much, which then becomes a stressor on the body, which then further exacerbates the problem of overweight. So I think it's worth remembering that these effects go in both directions all around here and can really lead people to being caught in a cycle of poor health behavior, stress, and overweight that's very difficult to get oneself out of. And this looks identical to the previous slide, but it is not. One way of conceptualizing at least some of the stress associated with overweight is to consider weight stigma as a primary stressor. For those of you who are unfamiliar with this term, weight stigma consists of negative attitudes and stereotypes about overweight or obese people that can lead to maltreatment or discrimination. And in the context of children, it often leads to teasing or bullying in a variety of settings. Research has shown that the psychological stress associated with overweight is often occurring in the context of weight bias or stigma, and that experiences of stigma have a major impact on health behaviors and lead to lower quality of life in overweight or obese children. Stigma is associated with overeating to cope, which we saw reported by our overweight youth in this survey, and stigma can be a barrier to physical activity, as reported by the adults in this survey as well. Overweight individuals in the survey also reported more depression and anxiety, which can result from stigmatizing experiences as well as general stress. While it's probably unfair to attribute all stress in this survey to weight stigma, it's important to remain sensitive to this issue as we think about making recommendations for improving health practices and behaviors. relevant to the issue of blame, I was very struck by the findings on willpower in this survey that Dr. Anderson alluded to. As with the previous year's survey, this year's respondents identified willpower as a primary barrier to making healthy changes in their lives. And the reason that this finding is so striking and somewhat perplexing to me is that the lack of willpower connotes some kind of internal fault or flaw. And it isn't surprising that we blame ourselves because we receive so many messages, and I've put one up here on the slide, about personal freedom, how we should have control over what we eat, regarding physical activity, we need to just do it, and so on and so on. Personal responsibility and personal freedom is a big message out there in terms of health behaviors. However, the data on health behaviors, and especially specific to diet and physical activity, are very clear and identify environmental cues as the primary drivers of so many of our health behaviors. We are either active or not, primarily because of how our environment is structured. Our eating is shaped by our access to various foods, their cost, their availability, which foods are heavily advertised, and this is especially true of children. We eat more when more is in front of us. And this is particularly true for children who have so little control over their environments, they're not even able to choose where they put themselves. Survey respondents, to my mind, really are mistakenly looking to some kind of inner strength to make the kinds of health behavior changes we're wanting to see, when the reality is that they are in large part at the mercy of their environment. So to my mind, our job here really is to teach people how to structure their environment to increase the likelihood of making healthy choices at any given time. The Stress in America survey this year found that overweight parents were more likely to report having overweight children. This is very consistent with the literature. The leading hypothesis is that some of this is biology and some of this is learned and modeled behaviors. Our parents in this survey were less likely to report eating well and engaging in physical activity with their families, which does speak to the issue of parental modeling and learned behaviors. Parent behaviors are important, and I know that Dr. Griffin is going to talk more in depth about this, so I will leave some of that to him. But let me just say that research has found that parent involvement and intervention for overweight children in particular is key to success. Some of you may have seen the release of a study just this week on an intervention for overweight children that targeted the parents only. They didn't even bother treating the children and found that they had success simply by targeting parents. I think that speaks to how strong that parent impact is, and I think we are seeing that in the data here. This is most true for young children. The peer and other out-of-home effects as kids move into adolescence start to creep in and have a bigger impact. So when treating children or adults who struggle with weight, I want to reiterate that we must remain sensitive to self-esteem and the experience of weight stigma. One way to do this is to focus specifically on health behaviors rather than weight, and to focus on environmental change for the whole family rather than individuals at a time. So really it's about changing the family, changing the environment.